Okay, so hi everybody, it's me here. Welcome back. So, I am actually really sorry for appearing a bit late today. So, Leo and I were trying to talk about one that we could play before the stream, but we kind of just decided to be like, hi Logan, it's nice to see you. How are you? So, anywho, I'm kind of just wanting to take a break from the games for a little bit. So, I'm not really too sure of what's gonna happen tonight. Though, I did talk with Leo a little bit too, and from what I know, he's did like a really big change in his life. I kind of figured that was the thing, since he wasn't really talking with our Leo, or really anybody for that matter, for the longest time. And, honestly, that's understandable. Though he did just put me up to speed with what was going on with his life and what he's been trying to do. And so, something that he recently was talking to me about was it's something that I'm actually not familiar with, since in my world we don't really have the experience of this, but the Leo from your guys' world had said that he's been trying to actively work on becoming what's known as a disability advocate. I have no idea what that means. So I asked him what it was about, and he started talking a little in depth about it, about how people on Earth have these disabilities that do give them more of a challenge to navigate in the world of Earth, which is that's kind of unfortunate. Like, where I'm from, we don't have that. People are just very supportive of each other here, so we don't really, have that problem here where there's just an apprehension or refusal to support one another. Hi Lele, it's nice to see you. How are you guys? I hope everyone's doing good tonight. But I'm doing my best to wrap my head around this subject that Leo was talking to me about, which I'm gonna need some time. He kind of gave me like just a quick 5-minute thing about it. And so I think in my own time, I'm gonna try and ask around here if anybody maybe might know anything about it, but I doubt that they will, because honestly, this seems pretty new. But as for you guys on Earth, this is something that's been a very ongoing thing from what he has told me, and that he's been actively working on just understanding people that are disabled. Hello there, Dragon Knight, how are you? And so that was like the biggest thing that was on his mind, was the disability advocacy, and which was part of the reason why we couldn't really come to any conclusion on what game that him and I could put together and play for tonight. He did also let me know too that there are a couple games that you guys did suggest, and he told me that he just doesn't have accessibility to those games yet, which I look forward to it. He did tell me, like, hey, there's people that actually want us to try out a game called 60 Seconds, and when I get the opportunity to, I'll let you know, which is pretty nice. But it seems like for the most part that what Leo is focused on right now is being really supportive of people that are just different and unique, which I think is a really cool thing. And he did also say something to me just a little bit about, like, when I get a little bit more time, I'll talk to you more about what is about people's disabilities and stuff, which, some of it reminded me of you, Izani, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess we can talk about it later. It seemed like to me that Leo just had a lot on his mind, especially as of recent. So, if you guys do end up seeing him again, just give him a nice forum hello and everything. And it does seem like he tends to do quite a bit outside of the streaming part of what we do. And, it's totally understandable because we all tend to have our own life that we have to deal with. And there are times in our lives where we do have to make a decision, which, I had to do that a long time ago. Because, I ended up losing two of my best friends, and I had to make the choice to move on from that rather than just to sit there and dwell on it. And the Leo from my world helped me through that, as well as his friend Stray and my friend Nira, which is pretty awesome. So I think with that being said, tonight, for the most part, I guess what we'll end up doing is just talking a little bit about things that are going on in our lives right now. If y'all want, we could even throw around some other ideas for games that we could play for tomorrow, even maybe next time that I'm here. Because honestly, I was pretty stumped as to what to play tonight too. So I wanted to take a break from the Epic Battle Fantasy 5 just for a little bit, so that way, I could just break away from the gaming just for a little bit. But anywho, it really does seem like there's just a lot of big changes that are going on lately. Let's see here. I guess I could talk a little bit about what's going on in my world too. So Stray and Leo have actually been making really, really great strides in getting to know people here on New Galaxia, which is really awesome. Because for a moment there, they tend to have had their focus outside, which wasn't a bad thing either, because they did like to help other people out, but they did eventually realize how important it is to also help out the people that are in this world too. So the other day, Stray decided to go and visit Bundo in the library, and funny enough, I was there too and trying to help Bundo out a little bit, but then Stray comes in and she goes, hey, Do you guys need the extra hand? Normally, Stray would just help out a little bit here and there, and then just kind of go and chill, but this time around, she was really pushing
Mom.
That hoodie is giving.
the helping notion a little bit more, which was actually pretty cool. And Leo, he's like going full force with just helping people to the best of his ability in here, and getting to know the guys more, which I actually really do appreciate that too, because really, for the most part, he would mostly stay to himself, but now his active participation on getting to know people is actually, it's a change that I'm getting used to still, but I enjoy it. He did tell me that, her being to himself was nice, but then at the same time, it was just like, he realized that he can't keep doing that, especially for how long he's been around. So, I actually do applaud him for that. So, it's kind of interesting. And also, as for Sig, he actually decided to start... What was it again? What was it that he was starting to do? He decided to... I know it was something with him and Lon that they decided to start, coming together on. I can't quite exactly remember what it was. I'll have to ask him again. But also, in case if some of you guys forgot, Sig does have his own place now, which is super awesome. We went back over there, me and Mira did the other day, and, he spiffied up the place a little bit, which was actually pretty nice. Though he did tell us that he still wants to do a little bit more to the home and perhaps even add on to it. Which, more power to him. He did say that having a project like that did help him feel a little bit more at home, especially since back in Luxion, he was a blacksmith. And, that's something that Okor participate in doing. So, I'm actually happy that he's finally finding his way here, because when he actually was found by Leo, he was in a really bad state. I've actually never really seen him that angry before. And from time to time I'd walk by his place and be like, hey man, what's up and stuff, but I've never seen him as angry as he was back when he first came here. It was crazy. I was like, oh crap. But sometimes adjustments that happen fast like that can put a lot of stress on somebody, especially when they're just very used to the same thing every single day. Also, as for Mercy and who was it? Mercy and as for Mercy and Albrand, I'm sorry, I haven't talked to them in a little bit, so I've already forgotten. As for Mercy and Albrand, they've been getting along just fine as well. Actually, Albrand has decided to step up in his medical expertise. That didn't really change too much from when he was on Luxium. But he did decide to step it up a bit and become more involved. And so he's been getting known by some of the people around here, in which I'm not sure if I have mentioned it to you guys. There are people here that don't have powers. They're just regular everyday folks. Just like you guys down there on Earth. And, you know, when we have medics like Mercy and Albrand that can help cure them more efficiently and also without limitation, it's very relieving for them. And also, from what I found out too, Rita decided to change things up. She let her boss know at the diner that she used to work at that she's pretty much leaving to go on this soul-searching journey. So I actually haven't seen her since then. But she did come to me and Nira the other day and just saying, you know, I'm gonna go and travel for a bit, and I won't be back for a while, guys. But, you know, I'm just trying to figure things out for myself, especially with everything that I have been told, which, yes, we did end up getting to a point where we had to tell her what happened, because Rita did start to question people, like what actually happened before she came here. And she just got the feeling that there was something off. So we ended up having to tell her how before she came to New Galaxia, there was a world called Luxium. And now, mind you, Rita has no memory of her past. What Shrey had told us is that when she went through the gateway, which strangely enough, we didn't know that Shrey had actually helped in saving Rita. But anywho, she had stated that when Rita had went through the gateway, she had this transformation that happened to her. Because Rita was pretty much in this very near-death situation after the one person that we deemed as the evil exorcist damn near drained her of all of her power. Her shadow magic, or I should say shadow flux, was just barely keeping her alive. And so Stray ended up rescuing her from the evil exorcist. And when she went to the gateway, this transformation had actually not only did it what it is that she said, it converted her shadow, what was left of her shadow flux, into something that was more aligned with this universe or dimension, I would say, cosmically. So that's why pretty much everything that she knows now is pretty much just the knowledge that she has here on New Galaxia. And so when we ended up telling her that, she used to actually be somebody that was inherently evil, she couldn't actually accept that fact because the Rita that is here now is just a completely different person. And when she heard that, it put her into shock a little bit. And so she ended up, she took the conversation pretty well. But honestly, I will say this, we weren't entirely expecting her to go on this big soul-searching journey. But I guess, sometimes things just happen like that. So she pretty much ended up leaving her little job there at the diner. And honestly, I don't really even know where she's at right now. She pretty much just said that she just doesn't want any contact with anybody. And that she just wants to figure things out on her own. And then she'll come back when she's figured everything out. So, honestly, it's more power to her. And since I could actually say, like, I do understand where she's coming from. At least a little bit, in a sense. What if one day, you're just a completely different person, you don't remember anything from your past at all, and then, people are acting weird around you, and you don't know why, it starts making you question things as to what actually happened. So, it actually comes to a bit of a shock for everybody. And Rita did also say too, like, I'm not really all too entirely bothered by people giving me weird looks and stuff. It's more of like, I need to put the pieces together as to why and where that's going to take me now. And so that's totally understandable. And everyone has been doing their due part to actually be understanding of her and being supportive of her.
At Granger, we're for the ones
And,
who pay attention to every little detail. The ones who fuss, tinker, and sweat the small stuff.
It's
Because
understandable
can make the biggest
why, people felt the way that they did too. Because for us guys, we were so used to Rita just being on the side of evil for so long. And so for that, it was pretty much a big shift for all of us. And it's not really something that can just flip overnight. So, everyone's going through an adjustment period here. And honestly, the guys that it really affected, they do feel bad, but, it's like she said, she's not really bothered by that. It's just more of, like she said, putting the pieces together. For me, I ended up having to put the pieces together too. Especially since, my best friends, Eddie and Miles, they were pretty much killed in a very crazy war. I was so used to having them around. And, for quite the longest time, I pretty much just sat there and dwelled in my thoughts when it came to them. And I questioned, like, why was it them? Why wasn't it me? Or even, like, why couldn't they have come along? Because, you know, a lot of it just didn't make any sense. But, I mean, even to this day, it still doesn't make sense as to why they decided to do it. But, you know, only they'd be able to answer that. You know, Mira and I did try and talk it out and think, but it's just no matter what, it just didn't make any sense. Honestly, we may never know. We can piece everything together and think about what was going on in their heads, but it's just won't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But I will also say this too, that Miles and Eddie did have a tendency to be more emotionally impulsive in their decisions. So maybe there was a factor in that, but then again, you know, it's really hard to tell. It was a really unprecedented situation. And so we pretty much just had to take it for what it is. But, you know, I ended up having to chalk it up and move forward from it. You know, I had to beat it myself for a little while and figure out what was going on and what was gonna happen next. It was pretty painful. I still remember how it felt when I had to accept all of that. One could say it was very bittersweet, but also it was a journey that I had to take. And honestly, everybody here in New Galaxia has grown in some way, shape, or form too. I mean, even Sumo, when he first got to be around us, he was a little apprehensive, I would say. And you know, his friend Suki had said, you know, he's not really all too open with people he doesn't really know. He's like, him and I have been here for a bit, but you know, there is just some things with him that when it comes to trust, he's pretty selective on. And she goes, I've been trying to help him with that too. And you know, but now when he's around us, he greets us and he's pretty warm, welcoming, especially when it comes to and having his sweets. It's like a thing for him. Not only that, so I'm not sure if anybody has told you guys this, but Panka and Marcus, when Marcus ended up getting out of his coma, which for those that don't know, when Marcus arrived here, he was in this deep coma. So it was about a month ago when he actually got out of his coma. And Panka was relieved, but now the thing is that Marcus had told her that he needs to be able to figure some things out and he was going through a pretty like big mental adjustment, and so he ended up telling Ponga like, I can't be here to help you right now. In which, that ended up actually breaking Ponka's heart, because Ponka really actually did look up to Marcus, especially, and Luxium. But unfortunately, I understand where Marcus is coming from with that too, because, you go from trying to fight this crazy war and also, being really stuck in your ideologies and stuff, and then you wake up in this new world and there's not really much of any of that, if there's anything like that now, and it completely changes your blood and what you're used to. So pretty much what ended up happening is that while Stray ended up taking Panka as her apprentice a while back, which I forgot to mention that too. Stray's been Panka's mentor for quite some time now, but when Marcus woke up, Marcus did actually see that Stray was the better mentor for Panka. But not only that, Marcus also needed to do what Rita ended up having to do, which is some soul searching and figuring out what he needed to do with his new life here on New Galaxia, because again, it's just a really big shift. And Panka was really upset with Stray for a little bit. Asked her like, well, why didn't you like go and stop him or anything? And Stray had told her like, people need to be able to figure things out for themselves. Going after them just delays their journey as a person. Do you really want to do that to Marcus and stop him from being able to grow as a person? Because if you do, you don't actually care for Marcus like you think. You're attached to a version of Marcus that you've been really comfortable with for so long. Panka didn't really like having to hear that, but at the same time, she knew deep down that Stray was right. And so Panka ended up telling Stray, you know what? Yeah. I think this is growth for both me and Marcus, and what I'll do is follow in your footsteps, Stray. And mind you, this is actually Stray telling me all of this, since I can't remember what day it was that she was telling me about it. I know it was at least like a month or two ago when she was telling me about it. But anywho, so long story short, like I've been saying, it's just all the guys here have been going through change. And honestly, it seems like the ones who actually took it the easiest were Mercy, Elbrian, Vundo, and Sue. I do know too that Sue had also lost part of his memory. At least according to, who was it? Gotta remember who it was. It wasn't Nira. I believe it was Osmond. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was Osmond. Which, speaking of, he's actually doing pretty good for himself. But anywho, Osmond was telling you a little bit about Sue, and I know I think there was a time where Osmond had mentioned something to Sue, and Sue just couldn't remember it. Now, also, I can't remember if it was me that asked Sue a while back. I think it was. I asked him about if he knew who Jan was, and he didn't know. But there was also something related to, like, the white turbans that Osmond had asked Sue about, and Sue goes, I don't know what you're talking about. So, definitely for sure, this new world and transformation for Gaius, it affected each and every one of them differently. So, like, we don't even know how much of an extent this affected the Gaius. And also, not only that, Bernard and Kong, interesting enough, they've actually been visiting here more frequently in the city that me and Nira live in. Just to pretty much stop by and say hi and everything, and they've gotten acquainted with everyone here, which is actually pretty good. So everyone's doing pretty well and stuff. There was like a little minor fighting conflict that they had in their jungle city, I should say. Which, speaking of, it was actually really nice being over there. I'm getting to know at least a couple of the locals there. But anywho, their little conflict ended up being resolved, and they decided to, tour around the city a little bit more, and they just had a good time. But yeah, everyone was pretty much doing all right. Things have been all pretty well here, which is honestly really good. And, I've been telling Leo about it too whenever I get the chance. For him right now, he's been focusing more on helping those that don't have the power like we do, and to help them feel supported and everything, which is really good, because us guys and the ones that, have the abilities to go beyond and further, we can help each other out. And it's nice that everyone here does like to support one another. So I'm really glad everything is just really working out. So, what else is there? I guess I should talk a little bit about myself. So for the most part, I've pretty much just been working even more on my mental fortitude because, you know, I do know there are some things that do still stop me a little bit. I know there will be some times where when I think about Eddie and Miles, it does still get me directly at times. Not like it used to, but, you know, it still has a significant impact on me from time to time. So I've been still working on moving forward from that. But not only that, I am also working on still moving forward from the fact that there is no more Luxion. There is no more Never Isle. There is no more any of that. And not only that, having to accept the fact that not everyone was able to make it through. It's a lot to have to shoulder. But, you know, at least I've got a few people here to help me get through it. And, you know, I'm happy that I do. As I know, there was one time where you guys, Leo, was telling me, we don't always get that here on Earth. Not everybody supports each other here. I'm like, why? That doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't you guys do better as people if you all did? And he goes, yeah, we would, but not everybody does. It made me feel really bad that some of you guys have to deal with that. That you just don't get support. You don't get understanding. You don't get people that come together to help you through your troubles. Honestly, I could never really imagine that. It's just, it feels really just divided. It doesn't make sense. Like, even thinking of it from like both from a logical and an emotional perspective, it just doesn't make sense. So, yeah. Also, too, I do really hope that you guys as Leo is able to push through with this new venture of his. It does seem like he is excited for it. He is trying his best. And hopefully, you know, things will get better for him. So I'm hoping one day too he'll get the opportunity to be able to communicate with us more. But, you know, like I said, he's got things in life that he's got to really work on right now. Which, like I said, everyone, you know, they have their ebbs and flows when it comes to life. And also, not only that, he did end up telling me too that, you know, the one game that he used to play, he no longer plays it, which I can understand why. It's the more that I started to look into it and try to play it, the more it wasn't good. And energetically, it just wasn't good. There are a lot of things that I noticed that was wrong with the game. And when I heard Leo talking about it more and more, it just seemed like that game made him miserable. Which, you know, I'm glad that he stopped playing it. Even honestly, for me, I couldn't stay into it. So, I think at least for next time, I'll figure another game out to see what we can do. I know Leo had told me too that you guys do want to have like some type of multiplayer focused game. So we will definitely work on figuring that out too. We'll just see what we can do. So aside from that, Mira has also been able to fully master her fire skills, which is really great. She does very, very well with summoning her sword in these lotus flowers. Not only that, she's gotten really creative with her fire flux too. To where she can actually summon these waves of fire from her fire sword, and she could actually, and I would basically say, flick around her fire sword like it's a toothpick. And honestly, it's really amazing to see what she's been able to achieve so far. And you know, she did also say too, like, you know, a world like this, where we live at right now, well, it would be easy to say that nobody wants to destroy it. That's not true. She goes, you know, especially when the evil exorcist came here, I've noticed that no matter what, I should still push forward with my combat skills. And so it was interesting enough to hear that from her, and I'm actually glad that she has kept that mindset. And her and I, you know, we spar from time to time, and we've been able to figure out our strengths and our weaknesses simply from that. And we also managed to figure out too that when her and I are in sync so well, it's like our flux powers actually do blend together and become like a really powerful move, which we didn't actually, the first time when we actually did that, it was when the evil exorcist came here to New Galaxia. But as time went on and we started to fine-tune our abilities, we noticed that we could pretty much sync our moves together, which is pretty awesome. I really had a lot of fun practicing with Mira, and we even showed Stray, and Stray goes, wow, that's actually pretty interesting. And she even said, I've never seen anything like that in my life. She goes, of all the time that I have lived, I have never seen anybody pull anything off like you two have. Honestly, it was pretty reassuring, but you know, here we are now, and you know, things are a little bit chill for the time being. In which I think Zumo's gonna just end up paying us a visit again here soon. So, you guys don't know this, but Zumo and Suki actually live in the town that Osmond and Jonas have put together, which it's more, what is it? It's either east or west. I think it's more east from where the town that I live in is at. And we haven't really come to a designation of like what to name these towns. We just know where the locations of them are at. So yeah, but maybe we might all come together as people, figure out how to name these towns or whatever, and then just go from there. Also, Martin's Diner has actually been doing pretty well, even ever since Rita had left. There is from what I know right now, from time to time, Stray will go there and help out with the cooking. Which honestly, Stray, she's such a good cook. Like, if you guys were ever able to try her cooking, it's just amazing. But anywho, it doesn't feel the same with Rita not being there, but you know, that's just a change that we have to get used to for now. So, for the time being, we just have to take everything for what it is. Huh. What else is there to talk about? Jonas has been doing really great too. So there was recently a new amusement park establishment in the city that Jonas and Osmond oversee. And honestly, a lot of people there enjoy it. There's like this roller coaster, there's this machine that spins people on the inside, which I think is pretty cool too. And then there's also like these, what is it? There's these machines. I guess I could say that, you know, it's an equivalent to the go-kart in your guys' world, but instead ours actually float. And it's a lot of fun. It looks like it's a lot of fun. And not only that, there's, you know, games where people can throw darts and stuff, and it's really nice. People tend to visit there pretty frequently. So overall, I'm glad that there's a lot of good things happening here in New Galaxia. And when I get the chance to, I'll venture out more to the areas that Leo goes to and see what's going on there. I'm honestly very curious as to what Leo's doing to help the people that don't have the powers like we do. So for right now, I'm just having things come to fruition. And so, what else is there? I did also happen to find a couple more guys too. So a couple of other guys that I managed to find were Santos, Amdera, and also, man, I forgot his name already. Trying to think here. There was a third one too. Just give me a second, I gotta think on who it was. It wasn't Kitty, it was somebody else. And it's crazy that I'm having a blank on them right now, but can't remember. But anywho, as for, maybe I'll actually figure out who they were, again, once I start talking. So, Santos, I ended up finding him as I was just walking around one day, closer to more like the beach side of New Galaxia, and there's like this area with a bridge. And I just saw him just sitting there right on the edge of the bridge, and it was hard to recognize him at first. Because, you know, honestly, I was pretty used to seeing Santos as like this really big dude. And instead I ended up seeing this really skinny looking guy. And so at first I was like, hey, hello? Do I know you? And it's like, his face looked familiar, but it's just the rest of him wasn't. And so I was like, in my head, was this Santos? So, anywho, I go and ask him, do you happen to be Santos by any chance? He goes, oh yeah, it's me. How's it going, Ethan? And I goes, wow, I don't remember you looking like this. You look entirely different. And so he goes, yeah, there were some pretty big changes that happened there. And I goes, yeah. He goes, I'm not really too familiar with what's going on in this world. And not only that, I've also noticed some things that are different about me. Like, I can tell, like, in real time how past events occur. You know, for me, I was really used to just using guns. I didn't really ever use my flux, but it seems like coming over to this world has amplified my ability to use my flux. And it goes, that's actually pretty interesting. Other ways aside from what you just told me. He goes, well, I can also pick up on like hidden trails. Kind of almost like a dog scent trail in a way. But it's that based on set. It's based off of my intuition. Like I can actually see the path be drawn out in real time because of my flux. I goes, wow, that's actually pretty interesting. And so he also said too, like, I haven't really noticed any crime in this world, like any, really bad opposition. So I'm not really sure what use these newfound powers have. And also at the same time, I'm just not really used to being in this new world. But I've also managed to adapt here on my own. When I got here, I pretty much woke up in this forest area. And I pretty much just ended up telling myself, you gotta figure out how to adapt to this new place. And for at least like a month, I got myself acquainted with the area. And then that's where I noticed this beachy area. And then there was also this bridge here. So, I'd often come here to just reflect on things in myself, like, what is this new world? Like, how am I going to be able to adjust to this? Is there even anybody that's around here? But, for the longest time, I pretty much just, built myself a little home. And just worked with that. And then, when I came to this new world too, I had noticed that my clothes were different. Like I didn't have the same type of like tight wear that I had. And, as time went on, I had noticed that it seems like my body had adapted to this new environment too. It's like, I'm not sure if you remember, but you remember how all of us back in Luxium, we pretty much just have like these really big muscular bodies? I goes, yeah, I do remember that. And he goes, honestly, I think we may have taken that for granted. And he also goes, honestly, I think that, we ended up having those bodies as just like part of our life rather than just, being appreciative of that. Because having this different body type, I'm not used to it. Like, I'm not used to how nimble and lightweight I am. And it's like, I'm just not used to it. I'm like, that's interesting actually. And so, as he was sitting there telling me a little bit more about, what was going on, he also ended up saying like, do you happen to know of anybody that I could get to know here? And honestly, I had told him like, with what you're going through right now, you might be able to get along a little bit with Zumo and Suti. Because it seems like you're trying to seek adventure. which they like to seek adventure. And not only that, you don't quite feel like you fit in with other guys anymore. Even though you are a guy, you just don't quite feel like you fit in with them anymore because of how everything has changed so much for you. So, how about one of these days I introduce you to Zumo and Suki and see how things go from there? And so I introduced him to them, and honestly, they loved him right on the spot, which was actually pretty rare, especially since Zumo has been known to be pretty apprehensive. But at the same time, you know, like I mentioned earlier, he was growing, and this was during his growing period as well. So, and ever since then, you know, Santos hangs out with Suki and Zumo quite often. They're like a pretty fun trio, which I'm happy. I'm happy that he's able to have people that he can hang out with. And then also, I can't quite remember where I found Amdera, but I did notice that he had this really big knack for studying everything about New Galaxia, like, you know, the sand, the dirt, the rocks, all of that. When I met him, and even he didn't have the same outfit like he did back in Luxium. And so it's just like Mira said, all the guys that went through that gateway, their clothes ended up changing too. So, but not only that too, I had noticed that Amdera also wasn't the big, muscular, bodied man that he was either, which was pretty interesting to see. Honestly, he seemed a little bit skinnier than Santos. So, you know, with that being said, when it came to Amdera, it really seemed like he wasn't all too bothered about the loss of Luxium. And I'm guessing it's just because his curiosity carried him through. And it turns out too, from what he told me, he ended up living up more amongst those that didn't have powers. Because for him, he felt like that's where he could put more of his passion towards in helping those that were pretty much without powers and abilities to be able to demonstrate what he wanted to do. Which, honestly, I'm glad that he was able to adjust pretty fast. He did say too, like at first, the people were a little apprehensive about him. But once they got to realize that Amdera was there to actually help them, they accepted him pretty quickly. So, overall, what Amdera was telling me, it was a pretty nice experience. And also, Now I remember who it was. It was Tiana Lear. It was the other guy that I had encountered. And he was a little interesting, I would say, in the least. I remember Tiana Lear being really, like, greedy for information as well as for treasure. But this new version of him didn't really seem to be all too interested in that. He seemed to be more interested in new discoveries of new galaxia that he could showcase to people. And also, too, he ended up being part of the crowd where it was those that didn't have powers and abilities like the guys do, and others that have powers and abilities. So he decided to stay over there and open up this museum where he could showcase a bunch of different discoveries of new galaxia. Not only that, showcase people's art that they've created. And honestly, it sounds like it's really fun. But for me, I never really got too much of a chance to fully experience what Amdira and Tiana Lear did. Those visits were more brief than compared to Santos. Which, again, I'm actually glad that there are at least some guys here that managed to adjust pretty quickly. Which, I mean, the experience of losing Luxium has affected everybody differently. So, yeah. And at this point, I don't think I really have much else to say. So, I guess with that being said, what I'm going to do now is I guess I will just end up calling it here for tonight. And I hope all of you ended up enjoying this little talk that I had for you guys. And hopefully tomorrow we'll actually be able to play a game. I did talk with Leo. He did say that I'll be here tomorrow too. So it'll be interesting to see what we can come up with tomorrow. As for now, I'm just going to go ahead and take my leave for tonight. So whoever was here and present, I'm glad y'all got to stick around. And I will see you all tomorrow. So have a great night, everybody.